I want to begin with 2 disclaimers regarding the oncoming dialogue. First, disclaimer. I don't want to say that being anti-marriage isn't totally unwarranted, because there are so many things in this world that I would think would plague us and change our sense of opinion on the issue. Second, disclaimer. Ideally, this pro-marriage dialogue will meet you well. The goal is to explain what pro-marriage even is, and I do split between different scenes, so hopefully the way it's edited will make sense. Well, I hope you enjoy this video, and thank you so much for listening. Hello, and I hope all is well for you today. My name is Gershly Karen Pierre, and I'm pro-marriage, pro the nuclear family, but I want to explain what I mean by pro-marriage, pro-family, and also what marriage even is, at least in my interpretation. So hopefully this discussion can help answer questions, because the intent of this platform, as I share in my About section of the platform, because you can write what you want your channel to be, I've stated that I want it to be tied to marriage and the family. And so this will give some ideas as to why I take that stance. I often state that I'm pro-marriage and pro the nuclear family. And what I'm referring to is that I want to be on the side of marriage that uplifts it, that feels like it's a good thing. Because I do believe we live as a demographic in an anti-marriage reality. Anti-marriage in subtle and more obvious ways alike. And so being pro-marriage is to counter what I think is the dominant narrative, and that is a narrative that says we shouldn't marry each other at all. But for me, it's on the contrary. I do think we should marry because of what marriage is.
What is marriage? My definitions of marriage.
Marriage is a binder. It takes 2 humans and it binds them together for life. Marriage is a merger. It takes 2 humans and it brings these lives together in a unique way as they create their own family, which is pretty cool because when you think about it, as they reproduce, they're taking all their shared experiences, but also their unique experiences, and creating unique people that are going to fill this earth. Marriage is a foundation because it's the first step before the rest of the family is formed. Its intention, it reveals that you're not just going to have a romantic relationship that may not really exist depending on the time. It's you saying, I'm cementing this relationship beyond this current reality. Marriage is a timeline. It says, because I'm tying myself to you, that means that you have to grow with me. That means you have to stay with me. That means you have to build life with me essentially forever, or at least until we're 999 years old. And then if one of us passes away. Marriage is a family because you're now legally family. Just like you have to have a birth certificate so that you can know who are you connected to, so that this could be in the records in terms of the government, in terms of the different presiding bodies that govern us, those same presiding bodies that God tells us believers to respect. So as we honor God, we honor contracts, we honor covenants, we honor order and construct and laws and information centers. And so just like you have to put in an information center where you were born and who you were born to, that certificate goes a long way when it comes to marriage because it legally documents the fact that you are a family. How can I prove that you're a family without the documentation? How can I prove that you're married if there's no certifier? That's not how society works. I believe the systems of this world only mirror what God already installed. And God puts information on paper through his word, through the Bible. God puts information on paper in terms of helping us to logically discern his intention. He doesn't just say things, he puts it in a reasonable way on paper. So to me, paper matters. For those who say marriage is a piece of paper, I need paper because, well, don't you need toilet paper? Don't you need paper for the kitchen? Don't you need paper to write? Paper to me is constructive. So we need paper to signify that, yes, we are a family. And when you look at your different documents, they don't say, are you dating? Are you married? Or are you someone who's not dating? They just give you two options. Are you single? Which in the legal sense is not, are you engaged? It's not, are you with a person romantically? It's, are you just not married is how you define being single. And so marriage is the most recognized form of, in a serious way, a relationship. Marriage is a system. And I love systems and I love infrastructure. But systems are designed to make life more reasonable, to make life absolute, so that the same rules that happen to them happen to me. If things were just based on feelings, emotions, and the different vantage points that we all have, there's no absolute law. I thank God that not only is he absolute, but the things he creates are systems. So when we navigate our place in this world as human beings, we're not lost.
I am pro-marriage due to my religion.
If we are who we say we are as believers, then we have to be pro-marriage because we're pro our King, God, who created marriage. So we have to be pro everything he values. So when I say I'm pro-marriage and I'm pro-family, that's the same thing. I'm pro-marriage first, and that's how I can become pro-family. Because that's what God taught me, that marriage is the first step, and then the other things come with that.
In my religion, marriage is defined as a covenant.
Marriage is so biblically high up that the Bible even calls it a covenant. When I think of covenant, I think of what God stated with Noah. I'm not going to flood the earth again, and I'm going to show you that through this covenant. I think of what God stated with Abraham, that you are going to be the father of many nations through this covenant. When God puts himself in the midst of something, and he becomes the merger, and it being called covenant, then that's a supernatural endeavor. At that point, marriage isn't just beautiful in a romantic sense, but it's certified by this very powerful experience of covenant. And I'm still trying to make sense of what a covenant is. And I've been asking God, what is covenant? Like, what does this even mean? What are the benefits to covenant? The first time I realized that marriage was a covenant was in 2016, as I was meditating. And then it came to mind, marriage is a covenant. So I said, okay, let me research it. I typed in the search engine, is marriage a covenant? And it said yes. And it provided the scripture. And so ever since then, like I said, I had my awakening, especially in the years 2016 through 2019. Ever since then, I've just been curious. What is a covenant? What is a covenant? I might see different sermons about it, but they tend to be very descriptive. And I guess the question that I've been asking God is, what is the mystery of covenant? Because I'm at a stage where I think marriage is a mystery. if that's a Bible verse, and I think it is, I'll put that on the screen, God's willing, that I think marriage has mysteries and spiritual powers alongside of it. The fact that it has to even be a covenant, there's got to be something about that. So I'm pro-marriage knowing all of these details because, well, I just have more than one reason to be.
Pro-marriage morality.
The scripture states, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds. And the patterns of this world, at least in my observation as it pertains to marriage is bad. Don't do it. Don't fall in love. Don't make a family. These things are antiquated. These things are pathetic. It's easier to just have kids, but don't have it with a spouse. Marriage is so bad. You're better off having kids with someone, but never actually being with that person long term. I feel like I run into that more than pro-marriage. Let's fight for a better world. Let's create more families. Let's make family great again. Let's make marriage great again. I feel like the pro side of things is not validated in the larger world because people are not being transformed by the renewing of their minds. They're being conformed by the hardness of their hearts, which the scriptures say causes this anti-marriage spirit in the first place. They're being conformed by their own brokenness. They're being conformed by allowing their hearts to get harder in resistance to God. As the era continues, people are worsening because in the last days, and God lists all the worsening conditions. And notice how he lists those conditions, but he also says they're also going to teach people not to get married. Well, that's the world we live in. That's what they're doing. They're getting worse, and now they're telling us not to get married on top of that. Part of it is like, who would want to marry into this cesspool, this sludge, this mess of identities and personalities that don't even want to be balanced or that are so hurting and they don't want to heal? But the other part of me is like, God, you said it was not good for a person to be alone, but you did say it was good after every other element of creation. So I believe that marriage is good. I don't think the mentality of the people getting married is good. I don't think things that we have as baggage leading into the marriage is good. But I think being pro-marriage and having that as the value standard is good. And I think we need to affirm marriage. We need to find new ways to illustrate marriage that's going to make us want to get married. We need to counter the culture that doesn't see the purpose of another person in our lives that we can make family with.
The lack of marriages has not benefited our collective.
What have broken homes done for us so that we should say, hey, we need to keep that going? Broken homes produce broken minds, hearts, and people. Broken homes are not productive. You have to have order, standard, values, morals. To make this world a better place, we don't need to submit to our chaos. As adults, let's take responsibility. Instead of this gender war garbage, let's take responsibility for the next generation, unborn included. Because you don't have to have children to think about your proverbial children, the quality of their life. Those of us who are single, we have to really think about what is the contribution we want to make in their life that will last as they get to adulthood and raise their own children. What are the values we want to see perpetuated, even spanning 4 generations? So my children's 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 children. And that I can be the person that influences all of them. I do think that it was the choices of people that maybe I never even met that either caused my life in many ways to be so improved or worse. We can lament over the negatives of the past, but now we have to be the future ancestors for the oncoming descendants. What do we want them to say about us? What kind of world do we want for them to be affiliated with?
Pro-marriage empowerment.
No more of this gender war stuff. No need to be angry at each other. No need to have fights. We're adults. Let's heal. Let's communicate. Let's thrive. Let's make family. Let's make more families. And let's make ideal families, structured families, highly moral families, close-knit families. Let's make a family culture. And hopefully we'll get to the mindset that says it's not a shameful thing to desire marriage or the family. Hopefully we'll get to the mindset that says, you know what? I think I want to be somebody's spouse. More families for the win. We just need to get a dominant amount, or let's say upwards up to 70% of us to think like this. We're going to change the culture. We're going to take over the culture. We need to do that. Yes, I think that's a fear for many forces. Externally, the conspiracies against us, even internally. But if we could get to the point where we counter those forces and those influences, well, we're going to change our world for the better. All right, so we can either stand for marriage in the nuclear family, or we can decide to go against that. It's all our choice. At the end of the day, I choose to be pro-marriage because I just want to see a more empowered and inspiring world. Things get really depressing. So that's just where I stand. Well, that is all I have for this specific episode, and it explains what I think about marriage in terms of what marriage means. But just because I shared that information doesn't mean I can't add on to it. So I think there's likely more to what marriage is, but those were just my reasons, what I think marriage represents. And I also wanted to share why I always say I'm pro-marriage and pro the nuclear family. So God's willing, I hope this discussion is particularly informative and ideal. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more.